Welcome to episode 1. The Rise, Recover, Repeat series is all about building a healthier and stronger you, one step at a time. In today's episode, we'll talk a little bit about Rise, why it started, how it's different, and our 3 main values, our guiding lights that hopefully you'll see in every single session you attend, no matter which of our professionals you meet. Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Camilleri, the founder of Rise Physiotherapy. Welcome to episode 1. The Rise, Recover, Repeat series is all about building a healthier and stronger you. We'll do our best to bring interesting content, speak with professionals in the industry. If you've left a course of physiotherapy treatment and all you've attained is not feeling pain, the probability is that problem may and probably will come back. One of the big things that we're always looking for is to give substitutions of movements.
Instead of saying just do a squat, we try different things. Can you sit down on the chair?
So first session is where we can exercise without fear.
Our first huge value is So I really think that I became a physiotherapist initially because both my parents are involved in medical care, so I kind of always grew up with that surrounding me, and I knew that that was something I valued a lot. Having seen the medical profession, my dad being a doctor, I aspire to that, I love that, I like the value of helping people, of kindness, of trying to leave a person better than you find them, but I also knew medicine wasn't for me. I wanted some profession where I was able to interact with people for a little bit longer, and also something more involved in sports, in physical care and in movement. At the time growing up, I was doing a lot of physical activity at quite a young age, almost 20 years ago now, believe it or not. I discovered rugby, and that led me through most of my kind of teens and 20s. I've only stopped playing rugby this year, and I do think that it was one of the big parts of leading me to physiotherapy. I had pretty serious injuries growing up, so things which surgeons or other medical professionals told me might limit my ability to continue training and to play at a high level. So finding physiotherapy and getting that input and knowing that it can actually change lives, literally change lives, was just so inspiring to me. So it was almost by a happy accident that I ended up in physiotherapy school, and from there on out, I've never really looked back. I found that there's just so much you can do with this profession. It's so vast. You can work from pediatrics with children to geriatric care with older adults and everything in between, varieties of conditions. A lot of people think that physiotherapy, potentially Rise as well, is only a sports physiotherapy clinic, but in reality, there's so much more to it than that. Pediatric care, geriatric care, working with people with previous medical conditions like heart issues, and yes, of course, working with athletes, sports people and weekend warriors as well. So I just feel that it's a profession which is so broad, there's so much to it, and there's just so much positive contribution that's given to society through doing this work properly. Unfortunately, I also do see that physiotherapy can be a bit of a double-edged sword. If done incorrectly, then you can potentially cause harm to that person in front of you. If the education component is in there, if people feel like you're not listening enough and just not giving enough input, even worse, if the message that is being given to that person in front of you is that you're broken, you really shouldn't be moving, and you really need to take a step back from physical activity. And I really do hope that the way I practice, but also the way that Rise practices, will never be about that. It will never really be about, okay, so you can't do anything, you need to stop training and just do these little rehab exercises for the next 8 weeks. It's really not about that. One of the big things that we're always looking for is to give substitutions of movements. So, okay, perhaps you can't do a squat below 90 degrees, but you can easily do a box squat. Okay, so maybe you can't do a full deadlift, but why not try a trap bar variation? And that's one of the big things that I'm always looking for in my personal practice, and I believe we really envision and work towards with Rise Physiotherapy as well. I'll be very honest, I was never much of a businessman. I never really taught in detail about how to grow business, how to scale. These words were all very new to me 5 to 6 years ago. I will admit that my grandfather, who was a big inspiration to me, is a businessman. He ran one of the first IT companies in Malta, and I definitely think that was always a seed in the back of my mind, thinking that was a really cool way to live your life, to aspire to and to fight those challenges. But I never really thought much about, okay, so what can Rise become? Can we run multiple locations? Can we move into fitness? Can we move into this, move into that? I always really talk about this happy accident, that I met the right people at the right time. I was just so lucky and so blessed to be put into this situation where my clients trusted me. There's always been more and more demand for what we give, and I just kind of responded to that. I think perhaps one of my strengths is that I do think quite deeply about things, but then I'm not too afraid to act. So I do believe that when an opportunity comes together for potentially a clinic or a new collaboration, I'd rather say yes and live it through and learn from the potentially negative experiences than be too afraid to do it. So I do think that that is kind of how Rise is what it is now. It's just a lot of little incidents, a lot of hard work, but also a lot of luck to be in this place. So from my side personally, I still really value the clinical practice, and I try to consistently stay in touch with clients. I have people who I've been seeing throughout my career, believe it or not, who still attend regularly for strength and conditioning sessions. So I do really value that part of things. The advice I can give, or my thought process, is always live true to your values. So for me, one of the big ones that I always speak about is being client-centric and being an entity or a business that always gives more than we get back. So it's a lot about, okay, how can we leave this person better than we first met them? If someone's walked into the room in pain, maybe a little bit anxious, depressed, how can we help them to get better? And the base value of the business remains that. It will never be about, okay, how big are our profit margins, how huge is our revenue. Here it's always, let's live through our values, let's give as much kindness, let's create as much happiness as we can, and hopefully success will come from that. And I really believe it does. And it very much is, and if you speak to anyone who works with Rise, we try to be that way with the people who work here as well. We really make sure that employee, it's not even employee because everyone's more or less a shareholder, a part of the entity. Everyone feels welcome, everyone feels like it's a family environment, and that's one of our core values. So I think that's where it kind of progressed, and that's why people are satisfied and people stick with us, both from a client point of view with retention, but also from people who work in the enterprise point of view. I just feel that that family environment is such a big part. Don't get me wrong, I mean, introducing the right software into Rise has been an essential to reduce repetitive administrative work. Having fantastic people on board, we've just been so blessed that the right people have come at the right time. Having fantastic physiotherapists who just give their heart and soul to patient care. I think that there always has to be an element of luck, an element of being in the right place at the right time. But I do think that if you live true to your values, these things happen a lot easier. You do kind of create your own sense of what you're all about. So I'd love to take this maybe opportunity or time to just talk a bit about the three main values which drive Rise. Every team meeting we have, every chat we have about what we're all about, they're the 3 points that always come true, and I'd love to share them with everyone who's interested in this series of videos. So our first huge value is to always be data-driven. Now again, this can be a bit of a cloudy scenario when it comes to physiotherapy, because there are certain topics in physiotherapy which are not perhaps 100% research-based, but our big value is to always be as data-driven as possible, and you'll always see that in our facilities. We will always have and always will invest more in technology which helps us obtain data. So we want to eliminate guesswork as much as possible from our process. We spend a lot of time testing. We want to know about limb asymmetries. We want to know about muscle power from one side to the other in order to make a data-driven decision. We talk a lot, and I love eliminating this shotgun approach where you just kind of throw 50 exercises and hope one of them sticks. I think that reduces something called adherence, which is a client's ability to do what we're asking them to do, but it also reduces satisfaction, both for the person in the room with us, as well as for myself as a practitioner. So that is one of the huge things that we always look at. Okay, how can we eliminate guesswork? We'd much rather have a device which tells us, guides us on how to act, on how to treat a person, rather than having a curative thing or a new technique which is all the rage at the moment and will probably die out in a couple of weeks. So that is one of the big things that we're always looking for at Rise Physiotherapy. So another big thing is this friendly, family-focused environment that we have in all of our facilities, be it fitness, being clinical, be it sports massage, anything that has to do with Rise Physiotherapy will look and feel a certain way. And that is very much thought about. That is not something that happened randomly, it's very much a process. I'll talk about the smallest things, but the colors of our clinics, what the clinics smell like, what they look like, what people tell you the second you walk in. There is definitely a journey and experience which comes with Rise Physiotherapy, and that's something we've put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into, spoken to consultants, and the reason for that is we want better results with our clients. Okay, how does that make a difference? Does a friendly looking clinic, someone who smiles, someone who knows your name, does that make a difference? It does. Because if someone walks in and they feel they're part of that, they feel this therapeutic alliance between the professional seeing them or the coach working with them and themselves, then success is a product that will definitely be the end result. If you walk into a space, it's white walls, a person in a lab coat who's rude to you, who just doesn't want to speak to you, then do you trust what that person's saying? Will you stick with them for the long-term journey? And I will emphasize, physiotherapy is a long-term journey. It's 1%, little bit by little bit. You're not going to find any huge changes. That's the rarity. The reality is it's something which takes so much time, so much effort from all parties involved. So every little thing we can do to boost that, let's do it. If it's the most simple thing, knowing every client's name, the person sitting at the front desk will say hello, they will call you out by name. When you walk into the room, it needs to feel comforting, it needs to feel warm, it's tidy. These little things just make a huge difference. Am I going into too much detail? It could be, but this concept of family friendly, staff laughing together, feeling welcome, everyone feeling like it's a place they want to be, that just contributes to a positive experience and in the long term, better outcomes for our clients. So the third value and something we really focus on, and I think this has been the point from day one. If you listen to the introduction of this little piece that we're doing today, it was about, okay, how can we look for a gym facility linked with a clinic? And that brings me to my third and really fundamental value for Rise: long-term solution specialists. What does that mean? We hate if someone has left just because they're pain-free. If you've left a session or if you've left a course of physiotherapy treatment and all you've attained is not feeling pain, the probability is that problem may and probably will come back. You have to keep in mind that the most likely problem that you'll have in future is one you've had already. So how do we tackle that? Long-term solutions. Whatever is best for that person in front of us. Is it a strength and conditioning coach who's going to come on board? Is it Pilates and yoga sessions? Is it hydrotherapy? Is it as simple as writing a gym-based program for that person to prevent reoccurrence? But we will consistently invest and look for solutions that are long-term. How can we get that person to never need to come back to Rise again with that same problem? And that's what we're all about. Our thought process is always, okay, so the majority of people, let's be honest, have walked in pain, something's wrong, there is an alarm system which is bringing them to Rise Physiotherapy. We'd rather, if it wasn't the case, we'd rather everyone coming in preventatively, but that's unlikely. Okay, what can we do for that person never to have to walk in again with that pain problem? Let's start clinically, let's start calming things down, let's stop that fire from burning, and then let's move into the rehabilitation phase. Okay, you're starting to gain confidence in that limb again. Okay, you're starting to feel better and able to move. Okay, great, so now you've returned to your sport, returned to physical activity, returned to your activities of daily living. But what's the next step? And I feel all too often that's missing. Very often, a little bit of input on a weekly basis, 1 to 2 hours of strength and conditioning per week, can prevent so many problems. It's going to increase your health span, increase your lifespan, but more importantly, it's going to increase your quality of life and your quality of living. And we will always offer a long-term solution. So we're going to be starting a little tradition on Rise, Recover, Repeat, where I'll be asking my 3 top questions to the guest in front of me and getting a bit of an idea of their psyche. Now for today, we've had to do it a little bit different, and I've asked my content creator, Maria, to ask me her top 3 questions. So without a doubt, they're going to be quite silly. So everything's loaded up on my phone, and she has asked me, be honest, do you judge people's posture in public? I really judge how they walk. I really judge what shoes they're wearing. Posture, not as much, because my cheesy quote of the day, your best posture is your next posture. If physiotherapy had a tagline, what would it be? We don't really know what we're doing, but we hope you'll get better soon enough. If you could swap jobs with any healthcare professional for a day, who would it be and why? I quite like what surgeons do. I think it's quite interesting. I would be a surgeon for the day, but I can't imagine all that blood everywhere, so maybe not. But I think that's one of the most interesting professions. Keep it up, guys. So that's episode 1, all closed. I hope I've given you a little bit about the history of Rise, what it's all about, and piqued your interest to watch our future Rise, Recover, Repeat episodes. So if you have enjoyed this, please subscribe wherever you're watching this, and please let us know you've enjoyed it, and most importantly, ask us your top 3 silly questions for our next guest. Have a fantastic time, and I'll see you all next time.